Hello everyone and welcome back to another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this battle I'm going to be playing the Dwarves led by Rune Lord, and guys, we actually have some Iron Drake Torpedoes over here. We're going to be facing off against the Vampire Counts, who are led by Vlad von Karsine and a bunch of Black Knights. So let's go ahead and take a look at the army compositions and we can go from there. So on the front line I do have Longbeards with great weapons. These guys are great against Vampire Counts for a bunch of reasons. Number one, they're immune to psychology. So against some of those big spooky units that do cause fear and terror, they're going to be very resilient. They also have charged defense against large foes. So if they do have the unfortunate circumstance of having to fight Cryptors, at least they won't take that charge bonus. You know, against Black Knights and other mobile units, they can mitigate their charge bonuses, which is very nice. And lastly, they do well against Graveguard. So Graveguard are one of the more common front lines for the Vampire Counts, but if they decide to bring skeletons and more of a fodder-centric front line, they still have enough armor to kind of endure. So I like these guys quite a bit. In the center, I do have the Norgrimling's Iron Breakers. So these guys are kind of the epitome of the Dwarven defense and will. They have 83 melee defense, which is quite massive, 41 melee attack, which is not bad at all, and their weapon strength is relatively low. But I kind of like to use these guys to kind of just anchor my front line and, you know, keep everything steady. So they're going to be teaming up with the Rune Lord here. So the Rune Lord on his anvil, he does have the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, which is very good for taking out, you know, Vampire Counts units like Graveguard or Cairn Wraiths or Hex Wraiths. Granted, you're not usually going to see ethereal units against the Dwarves, but nonetheless, it is very, very strong ability. He's going to be supported by the Grumbling Guard. So for those of you guys that are just joining and haven't seen these guys before, they give a nice aura. So it gives 18% vigor to all nearby troops. So essentially they're not going to get tired over the course of a battle. More Longbeards on the far side with the great weapons, and I do have two groups of miners with blasting charges. So I've really been enjoying these guys quite a bit. You know, they're a decent backline unit because they do have armor piercing, and you know they're relatively expendable at 375 or 325 or whatever it is they cost. I can't remember off the top of my head. So against like Black Knights or, you know, any other mobile cav that have a little bit of armor, these guys can definitely chip them down and are a very, very good unit for kind of mucking things up. So I have two of them here with the blasting charges, and the blasting charges actually do some decent damage as well. And guys, this is the moment you've all been waiting for, the great return to the Iron Drakes with the Trollhammer Torpedoes. You know, I don't know how about a competitive sense, but I think they might be able to make a comeback because the Vampire Counts can only summon zombies every 19 seconds. So it's not like your entire back line is going to have like, you know, just litters and litters and hordes of zombies in your back line like it used to. It's a very different game and metagame now. So I think these guys might have a bit of a niche. They're very good against Mortis engines. They're good against enemy cav. They can really hammer enemy frontline troops and are pretty gangster. So we got the Iron Drakes right there. We have a group of Thunders, Dragonback Slayers, regular Slayers, and then the Goblobber in the back, which you can see is already getting to work on some of these Graveguard. So my opponent brought a very mechanical army over here. It's just everything that's good against the Dawi for the most part, with the exception of monstrous units. He does have an entire front line of Graveguard. So these guys, obviously armor piercing, kind of the rank and file of the Vampire Counts, but they are not pushovers, guys. They have 38 weapon strength, 28 armor piercing damage, and a bonus for infantry of 8, which is actually a bonus. So these guys are very good frontline troops against the Dwarves, and definitely will put my Longbeards up to the test here. They are led by Vlad von Karsine, who does have Invocation of Nehek and Raise Dead, so definitely just the kind of the staple abilities there. On the far side, he does also have Varix Reavers, which are a great choice against the Dwarves. These guys, armored shielded, which is obviously very nice against missile fire and all that kind of good stuff. But on top of that, they have regeneration. So, you know, if they're taking some gunfire and, you know, you have to do a bit of a retreat, they can come back, you know, I wouldn't say even healthier, but with a little bit more health than they had lost. So definitely a very solid unit. And Black Knights, they don't like have, you know, good armor piercing values, but regardless, having mobility against the Dwarfs is always good. Even when I play Wood Elves, you know, you're usually going to get great value by bringing Wild Riders and things like that, just to really kind of cycle charge and hit the back of those Dwarf lines and just kind of, you know, put them out of position. So I definitely like my opponent's army. It's very, you know, simple but effective for sure. You know, there's a lot of tools the Vampire Counts have against the Dwarves. I personally love Cryptors. I think they're just extremely powerful at kind of hammering the front line. Vargulfs are also good in this matchup. I mean, they have a lot of options. I mean, even the Mighty Black Coach isn't bad here. So guys, the battle has begun. You can see that the Goblobber is doing some great work, and the Goblobber is definitely one of those units that is almost an auto-include. And my opponent already burnt an Invocation of Nehek, so that's great. So as soon as I saw him use that, I switched targets, because I didn't want the healing to kind of counteract any damage that was coming in. So I switched to this middle pocket, not meter, I don't know what I was saying there, to the middle pocket here, and you know, I was getting some good work done on some of these Graveguards. Not right now, but eventually I do. So on the side, you can see he's coming around with some of these Black Knights, but I do have my Thunders in position to intercept them. I kind of positioned some miners here to screen them, and I also do have the Dragonback Slayers kind of sitting in the middle, waiting to see what he was doing. On that same note, I'm also pulling back my Iron Drakes with the Trollhammer Torpedoes and pulling back my miners to the back line because he did have 4 groups of Black Knights. So that's a lot to deal with, guys. It's definitely not fun. So on the bottom here, you can see some of these Black Knights are being shot at by some of these Thunders, and he's taking quite a bit of damage here. You can see that their HP is tanking. They're at about 70%, which is not bad, down to 40 models, so they've lost about 5, and their leadership isn't great. They're down to 32, but basically he's just going to do a massive sandwich, I think, and try and take out my Goblobber to take a little bit of pressure off his front line. But you guys can see that Goblobber doing some good work there. So the Thunder is still putting in some really good work. These Slayers are going to be true heroes of the Dawi, just bracing for this charge. You can also see the Iron Drake Torpedoes coming in, just bombing these guys down, and it feels so good to use Iron Drake Torpedoes again. It does some great work, and you can see that was kind of cool. That Black Knight like fell, and the one behind him also fell. It looked like they like collided, but regardless, these guys are going to come into these Slayers, who I should have charged and taken advantage of their charge bonus, but again, I thought they were the Dragonback Slayers, but unfortunately I got them mixed up, because the Dragonback Slayers do have charge defense. But you can see the Slayers here are taking quite a bit of work, and you know, he did shut down my Goblin for the most part, but some of these miners are charging in here with their armor-piercing attacks, and they're going to be able to drag some of these Black Knights down. But nonetheless, my Thunders are providing steady fire, and you can see the back line is starting to stabilize a little bit. Those Thunders just hammering home on these Black Knights. And of course, the Iron Drakes are hot in pursuit here. In the front line, you can see satchel charges and just Runes of Wrath and Ruin going off as I was about to say the Eternal Guard, but the Norgumling's Ironbreakers here in the front are fighting and kind of standing shoulder to shoulder with their Rune Lord against Vlad von Karstein, the Godfather right there. But it's a very wild fight here, and miners are a very nice supplement against like these type of units, because you know the Longbeards here are pretty durable, but nonetheless they're going to get cut through. So I got this group of miners running up and around and going to do a flanking attack on these guys, which is pretty gangster. You can see in the back the Thunder is still kind of teeing off on these guys, and also my Iron Drakes are they're performing quite well. I mean, only 11 kills right now, but still they're doing a really good job of zoning these guys and just doing massive HP damage, and you can see these guys are actually crumbling. In the back, he's trying to get back to my artillery piece, my Goblobber, which I am going to be sending back online. You can see they're waddling over there, and that group of Slayers, those guys really took a beating for the cause. But over here, the Black Knights, let's see how many they got. 37, they got 31 here, and then another 34 here, but something a lot of people don't know. Dragonback Slayers actually have this ability here. Where is it? So when they hit something, it gets negative 36% speed. So these guys are actually at 47 speed right now, and the Slayers can basically just drag them into the muck. So look at these Dragonback Slayers just massacring these guys. And I know you guys want some slow-mo. Is there any karate kicks going on right now? I don't see any karate kick action, which is unfortunate. But regardless, those Mohawks are doing some serious work. These Black Knights are getting dragged down to their level. So yeah, they're pretty close to crumbling. They're at 26 models, and those Thunders are finally going to get engaged on. But you can see those Iron Drakes just laying into them. And some of my miners did intercept that charge. And this is kind of what I was saying, guys. Miners are a great backline tool for kind of mitigating cav play and all those different things like that, because they're so cheap. I mean, they cost like almost probably 3 times less than these guys, and they're trading really efficiently. Black Knights themselves have very poor combat stats: 24 melee attack and 22 melee defense. And there's few things cooler than Iron Drake Torpedoes in this game. But those Black Knights are getting taken down. The frontline engagement's a little bit more even, but regardless, I did get a good flank with my miners going up and around the back, so using a little bit of forsaken ganking tactics. But he did kind of collapse my Longbeard line right here and was able to summon some zombies in the back, but I did intercept them with some of my miners I had in reserve. So the mainline fight is definitely very tough. You can see my Rune Lord here is a little bit surrounded, still putting up a good fight. But old Daddy Vlad von Karstein here is continuing to summon Skeleton. It's just, kind of overwhelming my front line a little bit. But the Norgumling's Ironbreakers are, just an awesome unit with that extremely high melee defense and good leadership. They're just going to stay and fight till the end, which is giving me time to deal with my back line. If my opponent had been able to kind of collapse my front like this and then push on back and, get some of his Graveguard chasing after my Thunders, his Black Knights could have really shined. But the fact that I was able to hold for so long in the front, and now everything is secure, guys. My Thunders are repositioning. My Iron Drake with the Trollhammer Torpedoes are going to be able to reposition. They're good on ammunition, and they're going to just start hammering these frontline troops. You can also see the horde of angry Dawi coming from the back. These Slayers are coming to reinforce their brethren. You can see the Thunder Fire is starting to lay into some of these Graveguard and Skeletons in the front now, so things are starting to look up. It was definitely a lot of work in the beginning, kind of mitigating his backline pressure. But that's pretty much kind of the way the Dawi games work in general. If you're not going to be using like a Death Star and that kind of stuff, you definitely have to secure your back line and then take the game from there. So these Trollhammer Torpedoes they're only winded, believe it or not, after all that fighting, but still they're going to be scooting up. I really wanted them shooting into this blob, and you can see these Graveguard are in critical binding because they are taking Thunder Fire. But my opponent with Vlad von Karstein does summon some troops. Oh, here we go. I wanted to show you guys this. So you can see the Trollhammers coming in here. It looks like they're hitting a few troops, but still kind of pegging away at these guys right here. So let's go ahead and look. The Iron Drakes do have 61 kills, which is really good for their rate of fire, and most of those are Black Knights and Graveguard, which is awesome. The Goblobber is back online and firing. It's starting to shoot at some of these dense troop pockets right here. In the back, my opponent did unfortunately get some zombies back here, but you can see these Slayers are running in. They got their axes out. They're pissed off. We're going to see karate kicks for sure. Come on. Yeah, there was at least 2 or 3 of those there, but it's always cool to see Slayers fighting zombies. Granted, zombies will actually make decent contact because Slayers, what's their melee defense actually? That's actually not bad, 32. So the zombies with their 5 melee attack probably won't be able to hit them much, but Slayers do have light armor, so even zombies can hurt them. But still, they're doing a good job cleaning these guys up. You can see they're degenerating with their summon status, and they're also going down pretty quick to that DPS, allowing my Thunders to kind of reform ranks. But those Iron Drakes just still shooting in there. They're up to 75 kills, so another 15 kills since we looked on these Graveguard. You can see they're getting popped down. The Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin is crumbling these guys, and it looks like that's pretty much going to be all she wrote. The Vampire Count's front line, they weren't able to kind of crack it, which was really cool. Using the Longbeards and supporting with the Miners was definitely good. A mistake I made in the past is thinking that Miners could be a frontline unit, but if these Miners had taken the initial shock from the Graveguard and, their anti-infantry bonus and all that other stuff, I probably would have lost that front line. So I definitely like using them as a support unit, a backline utility unit, and all that kind of stuff rather than, a frontline troop. So all that's left really is Vlad von Karstein, so we're going to go ahead and fast forward because he lasts an abnormally long time here. So I had all my troops surrounding him. His entire army was dead. You could see the Iron Drakes probably getting a little friendly fire, but let's see how many kills. Yeah, 83 kills. Some of those might be zombies at this point, but very well played to my opponent. It was a super fun game, and I've really been enjoying the Dwarves. The cannons getting anti-large was a nice tool. Granted, I didn't use them this time, but in other matchups, like against Norska, the Dwarf Cannon, even the Bolt Throwers can really take down mammoths and big units. And also, the Dwarf Cannon did get a calibration improvement. So it's actually more accurate than it was before. So the Dwarves feel a little bit more comfortable in this meta. And one of the matchups for the Dwarves that was just always miserable was the Vampire Counts, because you couldn't secure your back line. They could bring Vlad, and they could have literally summoned just packs of zombies every 2 or 3 seconds, and it was so frustrating to protect your back line. Your Thunders were always being pressured by zombies. Your Iron Drakes were always being swarmed on by things, and it was just frustrating. Granted, Iron Drakes didn't see much play, but if you did bring them, that's what would happen. But the front line held. The Miners were able to kind of fend off the Black Knights in the back and really allow the Thunders and Iron Drakes to fight. And the Ironbreakers here with the Rune Lord definitely did some work. So very well played to my opponent, Zenatia. Look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that Dawi showdown. Have an excellent night, and take care.